Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We're just going to allow the attendees to just filter in, and we'll kick things off in just a moment. Okay, so hello everyone. We're just filtering in now, but thank you very much for joining today for our MOVE webinar on automotive industry futures. We have a great panel lineup here for you, and we're very excited to welcome some real giants of the automotive industry here today. So don't want to hold you for too long. Did want to mention that we do have some exciting events coming up this September. We do have the MOVE America conference on the 1st till the 3rd, so do keep an eye out for that on our website. But without any further ado, I will hand you over to our host for today, Mr. Lawrence Ulrich, who'll guide you through. Lawrence.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Lawrence Ulrich here. I'm your host, and with us today are, as said, some real heavyweights in the industry here. We have Ashwani Gupta, the Chief Operating Officer of Nissan Motor Company, and with him, Peter Rawlinson, the Chief Executive and Chief Technology Officer of Lucid, the EV startup in California. Now, of course, in a perfect world, we'd be in London right now, dressed in our sharpest suits, balancing a perfectly stirred martini while our panel enlightens us. Instead, at least some of us are in our pajamas, probably digging for a light beer at the back of the fridge. But we're going to soldier on, make our best of the tough spot, and I thank all of you for taking the time, cracking open that beer, and joining us. We're facing seismic change in this car industry, a disruption, to use the popular Valley term. And there's a battle shaping up between legacy automakers on one hand and feisty startups in the other. And if that's not enough, the COVID pandemic has thrown a giant monkey wrench into these plans and clogged the crystal balls for even the best companies and the best analysts. So with that, I'm going to throw it over Ashwani, predicting the future of automobiles as a cottage industry of its own. But from your perspective and Nissan's, where do you see us going in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Thank you, Lawrence. I think let's look at the history when the earliest automotive that hit the road. They looked like horseless carriages. And today when we look at them, they look noisy and uncomfortable. But passengers at that time felt that they are traveling in a novel and privileged mobility. But only few of them recognize that the future of mobility will be totally redefined. And what we have seen is inventors put the best technologies in the available transportation concept. And since then, we have seen the evolution in the automotive industry. And this was driven by the social trend. Now, when we look at the social trend in the future, definitely the expectations towards the automotive industry is expanding. And if I say the top 3 social trend, number 1 is the global warming, which is asking us to save planet, which we can do it with emission-free technologies. Number 2, the aging population, the number of drivers on the road, which is asking us to save people, which we can do it with autonomous driving technologies. And number 3, the urbanization, which is increasing the congestion on the road, which can be dealt only with the shared connected mobility. So I think the trend is getting clear. The adoption and the evaluation of the technologies are becoming clear in terms of electric, autonomous, and connected. However, the pace and the geography of evolution is a question which we have to answer from now.
Fantastic. And Peter, I'll ask you the same. From your perspective, we're going to move from one coast to a different coast and a different continent. What's in your crystal ball? What are you seeing for us ahead?
Well, I see an inexorable transition to the inevitable. this relentless transition to battery electric propulsion, sustainable model for mobility for all mankind. And I see that happening progressively, almost accelerating as the infrastructure supports it, as the cost comes down over the next 5, 10, and 20 years. We've already seen Tesla rise to become the most valuable car company in the world. They will become a true juggernaut, mass producing electric vehicles. I think that there'll be blood on the carpet. The traditional OEs that don't wake up and move to sustainable mobility model rapidly could be left completely behind. They could go under. And I think we're going to have, in 10, 20 years time, we're going to have 20 years time, 70% of transport will be pure electric. I don't see it being hydrogen. I think that's a blind alley. And I think that the other thing that everyone's been pinning their hopes on recently in the last few years, autonomous driving, that's going to happen. It inevitably will happen, but I think it's going to take a lot longer than many people have realized and recognized. I think level 4 is well over 10 years away because it's a huge intellectual challenge for mankind.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to follow up there. You know, obviously you're placing your big bet on electricity and everyone sees it as a fait accompli at this point. What's the defense of that? You know, we've seen analysts and executives tell us that we're this close to that mass leap, to that mass tipping point. But the projections so far have always turned out to be a little behind the curve, a little wrong. Why are you confident that it's different this time and that we are going to see the big tipping point?
Well, first of all, I'd like to distinguish between, there's two different ways of propelling the electricity. One is battery power and the other is hydrogen. Hydrogen makes no sense to me whatsoever. You just do some simple math. You don't have to be much of a scientist. Do some simple back of the envelope
What's
math.
wrong with the fuel cell?
You realize that hydrogen has no future. Well, look, it is 1/3 of the efficiency of battery electric before you have to transport the stuff around at 10,000 PSI and put that supply infrastructure in. It is hopelessly inefficient. And that infrastructure is competing with a pre-existing infrastructure because there's electricity everywhere. And I could go on and on about it, but it makes no sense to me whatsoever. I do think that battery electric is the future. And I think why we've not seen this a massive pendulum swing has been cost to the mass market because of battery prices. When I was working at Tesla 10 years ago, I was chief engineer on Model S. A battery pack, a big battery pack, was $300 or more per kilowatt hour. So you're looking at a single.
Now under 100 these days.
Yeah, you're talking about $28,000 for the battery pack. That's
the price of a car. The price of a car.
Yeah. So you couldn't sell a car, a $30,000, $40,000 car, when the pack is going to cost you, and even a small pack would cost you, you might get it down to 18. Now, what's going to happen is that as the technology advances in multiple fronts, different stars will align. We'll see an increase of infrastructure of fast charging. That will attenuate range anxiety. We'll see cell chemistry, battery cell chemistry, address the degradation due to repeated cyclic fast charging, so that cars will be able to accommodate that fast charging.
A much vaunted million-mile battery that we're all looking for.
That could be an example, but it depends upon how you achieve that. Now, what is it? What is the duty cycle for that battery? Then we'd have a need for less onboard range on the car, because currently the car that the range that the car carries is the range attenuator, a range anxiety attenuator. What addresses the customer's range anxiety is the stated range of the car. But if you knew you had fast charging stations in every street corner, that fear would go away. And there's another factor which is completely overlooked, so overlooked, and that is efficiency. It's not so much the size of the battery pack per se, but how far you can go with a given amount of energy. Lucid Air behind me is capable of nearly 4 miles per kilowatt hour. That's a breakthrough for a large car. And I see a future, a holy grail for Lucid would be to achieve with a smaller car, the magic 5 miles per kilowatt hour. Just imagine what that would mean. With an infrastructure, you wouldn't really need more than 150 miles range for a small car. With that, with 5 miles per kilowatt hour, you'd only need a 30 kilowatt hour pack.
Right.
With cells coming down to the magic $100 per kilowatt hour, maybe at pack price at $150, that pack would cost maybe getting down to about $4,000. Not $20,000. And that, then you can make the $20,000 car that the man in the street can afford. It's about infrastructure, it's about cell chemistry, it's about efficiency technology, motor technology, inverter, and that's why I'm driving Lucid to be the most efficient. The Lucid Air that's coming out will be the most efficient car with the highest technology, because efficiency matters. It's not battery size, it's about the technology, and that will make it available for the man in the street, and that's when the pendulum's going to swing, and that's going to happen about a decade from now.
Interesting. Ashwani, I'm going to kick it over to you. Those price pressures seem like they're even more critical to a mass market manufacturer, a luxury automaker, a Lucid, a Tesla, a Porsche, can find a little room, you know, to squeeze in that price of the battery and charge their customers a premium. How important is it for a mass market automaker like Nissan to reach that, you know, that holy grail of price parity with a fossil fueled car?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think as Nissan, because we always start from the customer, let me start from the customer. I think we have more than 100 years of experience of making conventional ICE cars and more than 10 years of experience of making electric cars. That's why we have the fusion of both. Now, what we have seen in last 10 years with our Leaf customers is a significant transition from what we call it range anxiety plus total cost of ownership into exciting, comfortable, and joyful experience. This is what customer is looking for now. And when we look at electric car, how customer can have exciting, comfortable, joyful experience is because the electric technology offers more excitement, comfort, and pleasure by powerful and refined driving performance using the e-motors. Number two, extremely quiet with a space created because of the packaging. And number three, the powerful intelligence, which helps to connect the world to the customer and customer to the world. And these three really brings a great experience for the customer. So that's the first point, that why EV technology offers more. The second point, exactly as Peter mentioned, the charging has simplified the usage of the electric car customers. For example, customers at countryside, they even don't have to visit the petrol station. Number three, we call it that EV should not be seen as only the energy user. In our case, Leaf and the next Aria, this EV is also used as an energy provider. You know, with all the disasters like tsunami, earthquake, when we are short of electricity, these cars are using, is used as electricity provider to the homes and so on. And finally, I think the battery cost, which is driving the total cost of ownership, and the moment it is crossing $199 per kilowatt hour, we are getting into the tipping point of total cost of ownership from a ICE car to an electric car. And finally, the fifth one is the environment impact, and which we have seen that customers are becoming more and more conscious. So we do believe that with these 5 key highlights, we do believe that electric market is steadily growing, and we have to just wait for customer to have faith in this technology and see the clear benefit of this technology.
Interesting. You know, just by pure coincidence, I was driving your new Leaf Plus only about a week ago, and huge leap. You know, I remember driving the original 73-mile range. You know, I could barely escape like New York, and it was time to turn back around again. New one, three times the range. And the only wrinkle, and I wanted to ask about how much, it can be frustrating for automakers, how much more support is needed to really blow up the charging infrastructure, because I managed to find a fast charger for the Leaf up here in the suburbs of New York. Boom, 40 minutes, big increase in range. Just a few days later, level 2 charger, and I was cooling my heels for 3 hours at a time. And you still have that problem of all the apartment dwellers who would love, city people. It's like that irony of like, they would love to buy an electric car, but without a plug at home, it's like kind of fast charging or nothing. How much more do we have to go to really make chargers like ubiquitous, and is that going to take a lot of government support to kind of drive that?
Well, I think, Lawrence, in 2010, when we launched our Leaf, it was just 26 kilowatt hour because we were the pioneers in the electric cars. And as you exactly said, we have tripled and now the range. And many of our customers, and this is based on our 10 years of customer data, that many of our customers even do not use quick chargers because they want to be hassle-free like a mobile phone. You leave your home in the morning fully charged, and you come back in the evening and you put your car in the charging, and 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, midnight, the car automatically switch off and you can run off and you can run the electricity of your home using the car, for example. So I do believe that chargers and the infrastructure is important, but I will not say it is the most important. And we are the automotive makers, and every day we evolve our technology. We are evolving the charging, we are evolving the range, but on the other side, I think what's very important is to provide much more than what customer is expecting in terms of range, which is once again exciting, comfortable, joyful experience.
Peter, I'm going to ask you that. You're in the Bay Area. Again, it feels like there's tens of millions of people around the world who don't have access to garages. They're apartment dwellers in San Francisco, London, and as governments say that we all have to potentially drive EVs, there seems to be this little disconnect there. What is the solution for the person who wants an electric car and doesn't have a home or workplace charger? That describes potentially a huge market.
I couldn't agree more. There's this great paradox that the very most likely customer, the urban dweller, doesn't have a garage. And it's inconvenient to go to fast charging. There's a lot of emphasis upon fast charging stations. But 90% of electric charging takes place, certainly in the US, overnight in one's garage. And I think we need to have on-street charging capabilities that people can charge at curbside. I think that is the solution. But for Lucid Air, for Lucid and our first product, the Lucid Air, we have a 900 volt system, and we are in partnership with Electrify America. They are reeling out their 1,000 volt fast charging network, which goes up to 350 kilowatts. We'll be able to charge it close to 300 kilowatts when Air comes out, which is quite a landmark. And we're over 900 volts as a car. But we're also addressing compatibility with existing infrastructure, which may be at a lower voltage. What do I do if I want to fast charge from a 400 volt system? And we have an onboard boost charging capability on our car, which is unique and developed in-house. So we can plug into a 400 volt system and charge our over 900 volt car. You're absolutely right. It's not just the fast charging infrastructure, it's the urban overnight charging infrastructure which needs to be addressed.
Interesting. I'm going to throw this, the COVID pandemic, unavoidable, sorry, got to bring it up. It's affecting every aspect of life on this planet. It's already taking a huge toll on the auto industry, from sales, factory shutdowns. Is the pandemic going to force long-term changes in the industry, the cars people buy? Where's that going to go?
Well, I think COVID-19, it is unparalleled, uncharted, unprecedented pandemic, which we have seen in our living memory. It has a lot of impact on our lives. Some of the impacts are temporary, but some will become permanent. And during this time, we have seen many new terms coming up. The way we sell cars, the way we manufacture cars, the way we design cars. We have evolved work from home, shop from home. Now, moving forward, what we see clearly, even if there is less quantity of movement, but the focus will be more on the quality of movement, which means there is a strong demand to relook into the quality of movement in the personalized space. And this is what our new area, which is the electric cars with autonomous driving features, with fully connected in terms of society, will bring the quality of movement to the society and to the customers. And I think this pandemic has taught us to really relook into our automotive industry, but also anticipate what is going to happen in future in terms of customer aspiration for quality of movement.
One thing there, it's definitely forced another look at ride sharing, right? That seemed like the path. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't want to get into this icky sharing this car that who knows who's been. Is that one of those areas that has had a real kind of reappraisal in the face of the virus about the prospects for ride sharing?
I think every incident is a reset of the mechanism. I would say for the time being, it's too early to say. And that's why if I would say out of 4, we call it case, connected, autonomous, shared electric mobility, out of 4, 3 will still prevail, but they will prevail more strongly post-COVID-19. And it's too early to say what will happen to the S.
Interesting. Peter, I'm going to start this one with you. You know, this is a half glass full, half empty kind of question. 2 schools of thought on COVID. You know, we've had previous crises where people vowed to do better by the environment and took it seriously. You know, the fuel shocks of the 70s were one with Jimmy Carter and his cardigan, you know, turning our thermostats down. Other crises, it went the other way. So far with COVID, we're seeing kind of that response. We've seen governments already call for dialing back carbon emission standards under that theory of like, you know, we got to jumpstart business. We can't afford green investment. It's that idea. And then there's the other side that says, you know, that, you know, right, the economy must take precedence. People, of course, on the green side said it's a mistaken argument, right? That green investment can promote jobs and can promote the economy. But we're already seeing some of that pushback, and it's kind of discouraging. Do you think is COVID going to be good for EVs or potentially bad for EVs?
Well, I'm really glad you raised this point, because I take a completely different view. I don't believe in state subsidized environmentalism driving EVs. I believe
we've got it. Right?
Decide. No, the EV is so superior in experience. Once you go electric, you'll never go back. Goodbye V12. Buy the car behind me, because it will leave you in the dirt, and it's environmentally friendly. Drive an EV, a good EV, you'll never go back. And that is the value proposition. We do not need state incentives or any sort of artificial economic mechanism by which to promote our product. It stands on its own merit. And
cheap gasoline can't help.
Well, I think it doesn't help in a more price-sensitive point in the marketplace. But I don't think that the true potency of electrification has really found its way towards the more affordable EVs yet. One of the things we're trying to do at Lucid is develop this very high-tech technology which is going into a premium car, luxury car like this, which is undeniably expensive. But we're doing it in a way that it can be mass-produced for processes that we can make millions and millions of our motors, millions and millions of our battery packs, and it will find its way into that mass market and make cars which are so superior to gasoline counterparts that the customer will decide. And this won't be dependent upon state incentives or some skewed economics.
Well, we've seen, I'm going to follow on that one. You know, we've seen countries where when EV subsidies go away, sales drop as well. That it may be that that's connected to, again, there's been this gap between the price of IC and the price of EVs. But But we've seen that in a lot of places where, barring those kind of price supports, the market flattens out.
Undeniably, I think price point is a key restriction for the widespread adoption right now. But the way I see within the next decade, I see this advanced technology being available, finding its way down to the most beguiling, more affordable electric cars. And I think, I applaud what Nissan is doing with the new Leaf. I think it's really great. It's on the right lines. But I think we're going to do so much more in the next decade.
Yeah. Ashwani, I'll ask you the same. What role does government have to play? I mean, there's that disconnect. Their policies say that they want to see EV adoption. There's CO2 mandates in Europe that every automaker is having to hit. That will absolutely, it seems, require zero emissions cars to even get close. And when you see that, you're like, well, hey, government, if you're calling for this, then what's the role that you need to play to kind of drive that forward?
Yeah, it seems to me that lots of the traditional
are
being dragged over the line by that.
Well, thank you. So basically in 2010, when we launched the Leaf, we did not bet on any kind of subsidies. We launched it for the customer. And I think there are two ways of looking at it. First is what value we are creating for the customer and what value customer is recognizing it. And that's what I said before. With our new Leaf, and especially next Aria, customer will recognize much more value in terms of customer experience, in terms of driving performance, in terms of range, in terms of connectivity, in terms of autonomous driving features. Then the second part comes, okay, this is part of our business portfolio. So for example, we do 5 million cars. Out of 5 million, we have a portfolio which is electric. But to be honest, I don't look at the P&L of my electric business because I know that's not the objective to look at the P&L today. And we never looked at 10 years before also. But on the other side, how we can improve the cost of operations. And I think technology is evolving. As far as Nissan is concerned, we are using the strength of our battery and the motor experience of electric car into our new technology, which only Nissan has got, which we call it e-power. So in battery EV, we are using the power plant to source our battery and then giving the driving experience to the customer. But in case of e-power, the car itself is working as a power plant and the wheels are driven by the electric motor to have the electric experience. And this is how we are increasing the economy of scale of battery and the motor. And we are trying to justify this by our own cost of operations. So which means more and more we create the value and lesser we do the cost. The value minus cost one day will give us a return on investment. I think this is what is the business mechanism we Nissan has since 2010, and we are going absolutely on this track. Having said that, the support from the governments gives an advantage to create the environment and the word of mouth in the society. That helps, of course, but is that the final objective? I don't think so. And then you talked about CO2. I think as Nissan, CO2 is the consequence and not the objective. We are not developing technology to reduce the CO2. We are developing the technology to make customer more excited, more joyful. As a consequence, we take care of CO2. I think that's the mindset we have in Nissan. Peter, all yours.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely spot on.
Peter, let me ask, let's move on to autonomy. I love this phrase. People talk about, there were so many big promises that we would all be driving, I'd be sitting back with my cocktail, even taking a nap while driving. And now we're at one of the really good expert on this calls that the trough of disillusionment that we are in. Hey, I can dream, right? That we're in the trough of disillusion right now, where the reality is that we're kind of stuck at level 2 autonomy, and where we still got hands at least near the wheel and eyes on the road. And what's happened there, and what's it going to take to make the leap to at least level 3, level 4 in a safe and confident way?
Oh man, I could tell you a tale about this. So 3-4 years ago, I was generally regarded as some sort of mechanical engineering dinosaur, that I was actually bearish about autonomy. Everybody was hot on autonomy. All the analysts said it was coming. And there was me, the single voice saying, I don't think this is going to come anytime soon. This is a massive challenge. This is huge. No one realizes how big it is. But I could see an incredible opportunity to advance electric powertrain. And everyone believed, oh, well, that's already been done by Tesla. So why are you trying to improve what's already been done? That's already commoditized. That can't be improved. And AD is the new sexy thing in the investment community. Now, my view is very mainstream. I think it's a matter of when it'll come, not if. But it's a massive challenge. We're stuck around level 2+. To get to level 3 or 4, to get to level 4 is, I believe, at least 10 years away, and at least $10 billion for the software piece, with maybe a 1 in 3 chance of success. So I could start about 6 successful electric car companies with a 90% chance of success for a 1 in 3 chance of doing the software for level 4.
Interesting. Ashwani, I'll kick it over to you. You've got your Pro Pilot suite on the Nissan for the money. It's a simple yet affordable system with some nice ADAS features, a little bit of stealth steering on the highway, Ashwani. And do you see Nissan getting to a level 3, level 4 car? And is it something that customers are demanding at this point?
So 4 years ago, exactly what Peter mentioned, there was an enthusiasm to have the fully autonomous driving cars. And Lawrence, we are engineers. We like fantasies. I mean, every morning we want to do something new in terms of technology. Having said that, what does autonomous driving means to the customer? It is not only full autonomous driving end to end. And as you said, today as Nissan, we are already offering the customer the possibility to choose the way he wants to drive and experience on a motorway, in a traffic. He can be captain on board and have the experience of the driving performance of smooth acceleration, deceleration in an extremely silent cabin. On the other side, he can become a co-pilot and enjoy the music while delegating the car to something. So which means at the end, customer is the king and he is deciding what he wants to do. And exactly this is what we have done in terms of autonomous driving advanced features and ProPilot. And ProPilot for us is not driven by that we want to do a technology. ProPilot is driven by the human-centric technology need, which we have done in the smallest car in Nissan, which is the K car in Japan, like Rooks, and the highest end, which is Skyline. Why? Because we want our drivers and customers to feel confident and secured when they are driving. And that's what we call is a Nissan human-centric technology, which is made to respect the driver.
So for the next technological step, the big debate in the industry is the importance of LiDAR. Obviously, the skeptic is Elon Musk, of all people, saying, no, I can make my car fully self-driving. I don't need LiDAR. It's redundant. Other people saying, you're crazy. This will never happen. You'll never have the layers of, the layers of safety and sensor and sensor intelligence without a LiDAR system. What's Nissan's thought on developing that technology, and can it become affordable and usable enough for the mainstream?
Well, I think the radar technology we are developing, and this is helping us in deploying our advanced technology features in our cars, because it's a question of a process that how the car is learning from the surroundings. And it is of course to do with, in future level 4 or self-driving. But before that, the car has to learn the environment and the surroundings. And this helps us. And as I said before, when we talked about the advanced safety features for the elderly people who are driving the cars, we are using all these technologies to assist them to have a safety when they are driving. So we do believe this technology is going to evolve, but on the other side, we believe that this technology is going to evolve to serve the customer who are wanting it, but they don't know today what they are looking for.
Gotcha. I'm going to kick this one back to Peter. A little heavyweight versus a startup battle. Tesla's dominating the EV market right now, Peter. There's some thought that they have a huge advantage because electric cars is all they do. The legacy automakers have to keep building fossil fuel cars to satisfy their current customers, even as they invest in the new technology. Peter, you've worked for both a startup and for Tesla, and then for legacy automakers at Jaguar. Do you think a startup, all EV manufacturer, has an advantage in this space, and why?
Well, yes and no. So when I joined Tesla, my boss, Elon Musk, gave me the authority to set up engineering at Tesla and to recruit my team and to give me free rein to design Model S with the team. And so I had pretty much complete control to architect and engineer that vehicle. And I started with just about a handful of people, ended up with a team of 150, and I personally recruited and interviewed every one of that team and established a methodology, and we're going to do it this way, and we're going to reach for the stars. Now, that could have been done at Jaguar. It's just that I can't imagine anyone at Jaguar being given the free run to do something like that.
Because you have bosses and counters to satisfy? Is that why?
What?
You have bosses and bean counters to satisfy at the large
Yeah, you'd have a big political bun fight. That's what it would be. And you'd have people who were not convinced. I think that electrification is seen as a big risk within the traditional motor industry. And there are a number of reasons. There's a perception that an electric car is inherently unprofitable. An electric car is very profitable. The margin on Teslas is to die for. It's just that Tesla as a company hasn't made a profit many times.
What is that margin, Peter?
Well, I know the margin on our car, and it's to die for. I know it is superior to a comparable luxury internal combustion engine car. The margin on an electric car is very sound and very solid, and it very well suits Tesla. A lot of the mainstream industry is not convinced and doesn't think the EV is profitable, because it is. I've got the numbers, I know the numbers. It's highly profitable. If we had to amortize all the emissions engineering and standard and emission homologation across the cars we built, that would eat into the margin. We don't have to do that. A company like Lucid can only really exist by virtue of electrification. We can only countenance starting up as a company as a car company, because the battery EV exists.
Gotcha. Ashwani, I'll ask you the same as representing one of the global giants. On your side, the thought is that the scale and manufacturing expertise is maybe where, and the dealer networks, the service networks might be where the advantage lies for the old line automaker. As representing Nissan, what do you see as your potential advantages in the EV space?
Well, as Nissan, at first, we have got more than 100 years of experience of manufacturing and selling cars in terms of durability, reliability, ergonomics, and so on. But when it comes to EV, we have more than 10 years of experience, and this is based on our conviction. When we talk to our customers, that they see electric as the technology which brings more value to them as compared to the conventional technologies. And more we move forward. This is the solution which we believed in 2010 is the correct one to do, and today it has strengthened more our conviction that this is the right way to go. However, in between, we have a transition to maximize the usage of the components, and that's where we are serving our customers who want to have the e-power. And with this ICE, e-power, and the 100% battery EV, we are taking care of the full product portfolio of 5 million cars, which gives us economy of scale, but also on the other side, it gives us the extreme advantage to create value for the diversified customers around the globe.
Interesting, but it's expensive to do both, right? I mean, you have to decide how much to start drawing away from the traditional IC development and how much to put in the pot for EV. How do you go about that? I'm sure there's proponents in the company saying we want more, we need more on this side.
I think this is where we have to keep the balance between the passion and the reality. And it's a long journey, including the cultural change, and especially in a company where we have experience of 100 years, it's sometimes easier to draw a painting on a clean sheet of paper. So it's a cultural change, which we started in 2010, and we clearly see the evolution. And moving forward, when we will launch our Aria on 15th of July, this is much more than EV, which will represent what Nissan means in terms of customer value.
Tell me a little bit. We're all excited to see the Aria. Now we're looking at a 300-mile range on this one.
So it's too early for me, Lawrence. You will have to wait till 15th of July. But still, I would like to create temptation. So first of all, it is the fusion of Nissan's strength of crossover SUV and the EV. That's the first thing. The second thing is this is not a simple EV. We call it is the new chapter of Nissan, which is move beyond to enrich people's life. And this, we are going to do it, number one, by driving performance. So it is twin motor with 4-wheel drive, and which is smooth acceleration and deacceleration, flat drive, small turn, and the zero slip control. Then second, the confidence and the comfort, which is fitted with the latest autonomous driving assist features like ProPilot 2.0, which will help the drivers to enjoy the experience of driving. And the third one, let me say, the customer experience in terms of connection. So means with the latest connectivity, the world can connect to the customer and customer can connect to the world. That's why this is new chapter for Nissan, which is move beyond a simple EV.
Well, great. Well, I'm looking forward to driving it, and I'm looking forward to driving that shiny, very, very shiny Lucid behind Peter. But for now, let's kick it over to some questions for our audience and see what they'd like to hear about. Do we have questions? And until then, I'm going to go to Peter. Peter, tell me, it's been a while. Peter, while we're waiting, tell me a little about the Lucid Air and the timeline. What's the timeline for seeing the Lucid in showrooms?
Oh, right. Yes. Well, we've in the process of completing our brand new factory in Arizona, in Casa Grande. The walls are up, the roof is on. We're fitting the robots in as we speak. Our beta fleet of prototypes are under test again here in California, where I speak. Behind me is our first showroom, our gallery showroom in our head office, and it shows the sort of vibe and ambience of our retail outlets, and very much reflecting the image and the design sensibility of the car, which is inspired by the state of California. And we're going into production with this car early next year. It's a true luxury electric vehicle. I would say it's the very first true luxury car that's pure electric, battery electric. I would say its main competitor is Mercedes-Benz S-Class. It's certainly to compete with the luxury segment, which is dominated by the Grande marques from Germany, all of which are not electric, they're gasoline. We have over 400 miles of real-world range. This is unparalleled. This is very usable range. This is cruising at 70 miles an hour. We have, just yesterday, we announced that we've achieved a coefficient of drag of 0.21, which makes it the lowest drag coefficient of a luxury car anywhere. And it's just bristling with new technology, which is 100% in-house. For example, our battery pack is incredible high tech, and it's been actually influenced by our experience in the world of motorsport. We are the official supplier of the battery pack for Formula E for the real World Championship. And Lucid designed that battery pack, makes it here in our headquarters in Silicon Valley. It's distributed through our illustrious UK distribution partner. So all the teams on the grid, all the cars, all 24 cars on that Formula E grid have a battery pack which is designed and made by Lucid. And all that knowledge from racing, all that technology is distilled under the floor into the battery pack of Lucid Air. So when you buy Lucid Air, you have race-proven battery technology under your feet. We have 1,000 horsepower. We've tested the car 235 miles an hour, not 235 kilometers an hour, 235 miles an hour. And we will have astonishing performance, fantastic luxury experience. And we're going to launch it by live stream on the 9th of September this year.
Fantastic. Well, but the advances in Formula E, yeah, I mean, they hold the race right down the street from me here in Red Hook, Brooklyn. I can walk to the race.
I've been to Brooklyn to the race. It's great.
It's been the first time I heard it. I went here, but it's really happening. And
Brooklyn E-Crew.
We've got some questions now from Jason Lowe. For you, Peter, is Lucid Motors interested in building a shared robo-taxi fleet like Waymo or a Cruise?
Not on our current landscape, not on our current roadmap, but we are preparing for autonomy with this car. And yes, that car behind me has got a 130-degree solid-state LiDAR, scanning LiDAR, integrated into its nose. And we have sensors fusion with LiDAR, camera, and radar, with massive onboard processing. So this car is hardware ready for up to level 4 autonomy, but no plans yet for a robo-taxi fleet and no wild planes in that respect either.
Gotcha. Ashwani, another. Can you predict with kind of the year that EVs reach price parity with a fossil fueled car?
Well, it is the way we look at it. When we look in the European market, in 2019, the electric market grew by 70% with respect to 2018. And obviously, when we go to Europe, we are talking about stringent European regulations on the ICE engines which are coming up and the usage of the car. So for me, in some of the markets, we have already reached the tipping point of total cost of ownership from ICE car to a EV car, depending on the usage. You know, when we talk about light commercial vans, which are driving 200 kilometers a day, obviously they have reached a tipping point. And this phenomena is going to continue when it comes to only total cost of ownership. But in addition to that, what is bringing more and more is with the EV cars, the way we are bringing in the new technologies, it is creating more value for the customer, which are making them to take decisions faster than before, because it is not only limited to the basic price of the vehicle.
Interesting. But you know, Americans say we're bad at math, and cost of ownership is one thing, sticker price another thing. How about that great day when I walk into the dealer and there's an electric Altima and a gas Altima, and the electric Altima is exactly the same sticker price at the dealer?
I think that day is not far, Lawrence. That day is not far. I will not say it will take 10 years. I think for us, it is not more than 3 to 5 years.
Gotcha. This is more this might be more a statement than a question, but we've got Reg Aldridge says that the drivers are always nearer a plug than a pump. And that, Peter, you're spot on about a 30 kilowatt battery with easy fast charging access would completely change the economics of EVs. You hit on that again. I do like that idea. We're seeing that the conventional wisdom was that we're just going to have to pack 100 kilowatt, 200 kilowatt batteries into everything on the road and make them go a million miles. But you're saying not necessarily the case.
This is what drives me nuts. All the commentary is about the size of the battery, and it's all about the battery. And I say it's about everything else. Lightweight makes something even lighter. The bigger we make the battery pack, we have to carry more cells to carry the more cells. So we get into a vicious circle. And we get into a benevolent circle if we go lighter. That's why we've got the most aerodynamically efficient car behind me with a drag coefficient of 0.21. It's about efficiency. And then we can bring down the size of that battery pack. And that brings down mass, and it brings down cost, and that further brings down mass. And we get into this beneficial cycle. I was once chief engineer at Lotus, and I'm, you know, there's you add lightweight. That's the mantra of Lotus. And I think that we can apply this to the EV. You know, I think that it requires the stars aligning, infrastructure, chemistry that accommodates rapid fast charging and is able to not degrade, immunity to degradation through cyclic fast charging. A really efficient powertrain, ultra high voltage, using silicon carbide inverter that we're using all in-house. Incredibly efficient permanent magnet motors. We've made a breakthrough in our PM motor design and even our transmission. Every little ounce of efficiency all adds up. And that means a smaller battery pack or more miles per kilowatt hour. And that's what's missing here. This is what's missing in the narrative, efficiency. And that, the car behind me is being driven, every facet of that car is driven by efficiency. How far can we go with the smallest pack possible? And that's what's going to drive the electric car proposition to the man in the street.
Yep. I'm going to combine two questions from Hamad Qureshi and from Sebastian Sequeira. And these are the questions of environmental impact of battery development, recycling. What are the plans and the prospects for making these less, you know, damaging to the planet, as far from rare earth metals in the batteries to recycling?
Well, we're not talking about nickel cadmium here. Lithium is a relatively benign element. It is a very plentiful element. But I am a great proponent, again, there's something missing in this narrative. There's a lot of talk about the battery pack being used for a car and then recycling it. I believe there are steps in between repurposing. A pack can be repurposed for another use, which is less mass sensitive. So take a typical EV. Maybe you get a 50% degradation of its battery pack over a 10-year lifespan. And maybe at the end of 10 years, you say, well, gosh, I've got all this massive battery. It's only got 30 kilowatt hours of its original 60 kilowatt hours left. What could you do with that before you have to recycle it? My proposal is repurpose it and use it for energy storage system with solar and renewables. And we have designed a Lego brick approach to our architecture of our pack in Lucid Air. Each brick is a module of 5 kilowatt hours. And you can arrange those in different ways. Each one is about 42 volts. You can put them in series to stack them up over 900 volts. But you can repurpose those when the car reaches at the end of its life, maybe in 15 years' time. There's still some life in those batteries. Stack them into an energy storage system. Put them with a solar farm, with a wind farm. That's repurposed before we recycle.
Ashwani, environmental impacts of EV. Obviously, they cut at if you look just at the emissions, at the tailpipes, fantastic. But obviously, still questions about the use of rare earth and the ability to recycle. Absolutely.
So I think I would also put 4 steps for the battery. The first step is, so as far as Nissan business scheme is concerned, we sell car plus battery as a set, number 1, which means we own the battery. Number 2 is the car itself can be used as an energy provider to homes, to the businesses, to, as I said before, when we have a natural disaster, and the car can be used. And this is what we are doing. For example, the Amsterdam Stadium is fully energized by Nissan Leaf, for example, and Nissan Energy using the batteries. Then the third stage, exactly what Peter said, is the repurpose. And because we were the first one to launch the EV cars, we prepared a joint venture in Japan, and we call it 4R, with Sumitomo Mining to do this repurpose, because we do believe that even if we say that the warranty of the life of the car is 5 years or 7 years, we do believe with all the advanced technologies which we have done on battery, our SOH or our SOS after the 5 years, 2% of the batteries have less than 82 or 83%, which means the customer can continue with those batteries, but we have to give them this indication and the measurable that they can continue with the existing batteries. And we can do the repurposing of the batteries in between whenever it is needed, and we call it a regular health check of the batteries. So this is what we call it a repurpose. But the final one is a recycle, which should happen after 10 or maybe after 15 years, depending on the reliability of our technology, which we are seeing in the market. And this recycle is always done with the cost of extracting the minerals and the value of the extracted minerals. And I think it's too early to say that we are there, but I think we already have that kind of mechanism in our total value chain, that how we are going to reuse, repurpose, and recycle the batteries, in addition to the source of energy for different activities.
Great. This one's for Peter from Justin Masumi. It's a Peter that the Lucid Air is targeted, of course, to compete in the high performance luxury segment. Does Lucid have plans in the roadmap for a lower price vehicle for the masses? And can you talk about what comes next after the Air?
Oh, absolutely. My vision would be for us to be making 1 million cars a year in 7 years' time. There's a reason why we've gone for.
I'm writing that down.
A lot of people say, look, yeah, I mean, that I'd love to do it. We want to change the world for the better, and we can't have enough EVs. There's a reason why we're targeting luxury EV, and some people hammer us for it. Oh, another luxury EV. The fact is, the first product defines the brand. You know, Ferrari's V12, it defined V12 synonymous with the brand. You know, the first Lexus was the LS400, technological tour de force. And I think that we need to define our brand with our first product. And that car behind will be our technological tour de force. It can't come cheap. Tesla was defined by Model S. There's another reason. To go to mass production early, the industrialization capex requirements are huge. It costs a lot more to industrialize a Volkswagen Golf than a Rolls-Royce, for example. The Volkswagen Golf is a couple of orders of magnitude more capex than a new Rolls-Royce. So we've got to walk before we can run. So we've got to start with a lower volume. We're going to make 40,000 units of Lucid Air in Casa Grande in Arizona. Our factory in phase 1 can go to 34,000 units. So we've got to walk before we can run. There's another aspect to this. What's really unique about our car is what I call the space concept. And this is really kind of a tricky thing to get your head around. The car is actually smaller on the outside and it's bigger on the inside. And the Brits amongst us might recognize there's a similarity to Doctor Who and his time machine, the TARDIS here. So we've got a TARDIS.
Well, that's where you got the idea.
Absolutely, as a Time Lord, well, that's the only way. But we're able to achieve this uniquely through electrification, because by doing our own electric powertrain in-house, battery, motor, inverter, transmission, and all the software, we've been able to wrap that powertrain, really shrink it down, and that's made more room for the occupants. And that has much more impact in a sedan than it would in an SUV. So that's why we've gone for high-end product, sedan, to define the brand, technological tour de force. But we want to make this technology more accessible in the future at more affordable price points. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, hey, in a second, I'm going to kick it back to the organizers to talk about some of the exciting upcoming MOVE events. But so I'm going to end this actually with a testimonial from one of our viewers, from Brian Ehrenfreud. He agrees 100%. He's as a Tesla and M3 owner, former M3 owner. Once you've driven an EV, you will never go back to driving an ICE vehicle.
Yes.
EV is the future. Well, thanks for that, Brian. And with that, let's kick it over. Everyone, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule. Peter, Ashwani, brilliant. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Great pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Cormac here from Move. So yeah, a huge thank you, and something else to get Tokyo on with California, New York, and also London. So yeah, a huge thank you. Did just want to mention that we're going to have as I mentioned, Move America coming up. That will be on the 1st to the 3rd of September coming. You can get all the details on that on our website, but just want to leave you again with a thank you to our panelists today. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Good night, everyone.
Okay, goodbye.